Fox 31 Denver. News at 9.
The Aurora theater gunman suddenly cut short the lives of 12 people July 20th, 2012. Now, more than 3 years later, 12 others weigh the testimony of 306 witnesses and consider 2,695 pieces of evidence to reach a life or death decision. Their verdict for James Holmes, life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Deborah Takahara.
I'm Jeremy Hubbard. The story dominating headlines tonight, of course, James Holmes will not be executed. We have live team coverage tonight. Fox 31 Denver's Chris Jose with an interview with a juror tonight. Mark Meredith with reaction from stunned families about this decision. And Julie Hayden breaks it all down for us tonight. Julie's been in the courtroom since the very beginning, and she starts our team coverage at 9. Julie?
Well, Jeremy, you know, the courtroom was packed this afternoon with all kinds of family members and friends who have been some at the trial throughout, some of them today, their very first day. I think many of them expected this to be a death sentence, and it became very emotional when they realized what they thought was going to be justice is not what the jurors decided.
Is there anything else on behalf of the defense?
As Judge Carlos Samore read the verdict that spared the life of the Aurora theater shooter, victims and family members in the courtroom gasped and started crying, shaking their heads with disappointment. There was no reaction from James Holmes, but his mother and father held each other and sobbed with relief. Jurors could not reach a unanimous verdict. That means Holmes will be sentenced to life in prison without parole.
And Veronica, 6. That's what this case at its heart was about.
District Attorney George Brockler emotionally read the names of the 12 murder victims in a news conference after the verdict. He was surrounded by first responders and victims.
And as frustrated as I am at not achieving the goal that I thought was justice and that I advocated for as justice, what I want to encourage everyone who hears this or sees this to know is those jurors did a hell of a job.
One of the jurors told us they were split. 9 jurors solidly in favor of the death penalty, 1 juror solidly in favor of a life sentence, and 2 on the fence. She says those opposed to the death penalty were swayed by the defense argument that Holmes is mentally ill.
If you've got one that is solidly opposed, then the 2 on the fence don't have to get pushed one way or the other. I mean, until she changes, they don't have to change. And so we'll never know, if other than that one, what it could have been.
And I think obviously a lot of disappointed and, as you said, perhaps stunned victims' family members here. The judge now has to officially impose the sentence. There'll be an automatic life in prison without the chance of parole. He also has to impose sentence for the dozens of attempted murder charges. Normally those kind of hearings take just a couple of hours, but there are so many victims, so much emotional testimony to come from the victim impact statements in that case that's been set for a 3-day hearing later this month. At the Arapahoe County Courthouse, Julie Hayden, Fox 31 Denver.
And we'll get more from Julie's thoughts a little bit later in our newscast.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. Fox 31 Denver's Chris Jose joins us live with a look at why the jury couldn't reach a unanimous decision today. Chris, a juror giving us some insight tonight.
Jeremy, we've learned that 1 juror was against the death penalty and 2 others were on the fence. Juror 17 didn't give us her name, but she's the only one talking tonight, giving us some information on what happened behind closed doors.
Shortly after the verdict came down, District Attorney George Brockler, along with victims' families, expressed their disappointment. Away from the cameras and media frenzy, Juror 17 talking to Fox 31 Denver.
Well, we all worked very, very hard to do justice. We gave it our all, and we just did everything we could to do the right thing.
The jurors, 9 men and 3 women, spent 15 weeks going through powerful testimony inside the courtroom. Today, a decision to spare the shooter's life.
All of us understood both sides and understood the mental illness aspect of it too. But in the end, we could not come to a unanimous verdict. In the end, there was 1 juror that did not agree that the death sentence was appropriate.
Let us get on with our lives.
As victims' families spoke out, the 11 other jurors chose to bypass questions. How soon they'll talk remains to be seen.
Some of our moral determinations were just different than others.
And we know Juror 17 is also an attorney and a major decision maker for her business. Now, you heard in Julie's report that George Brockler was ultimately disappointed in tonight's outcome, but he did commend the jury, and said he respects the system. Live in Arapahoe County, Chris Jose, Fox 31 Denver.
All right, interesting perspective from that juror tonight. Chris, thank you. After the announcement, victims' family members shared what was on their minds. Fox 31 Denver's Mark Meredith brings us that part of the team coverage tonight. Mark.
Jeremy, ever since the trial started, these families knew that they would have to face today, that a verdict would come eventually. With only 6.5 hours of deliberations, many of the families expected to hear the death penalty, but as we've been talking about, that was not the case. From the beginning, some families didn't want the death penalty to even be on the table. They felt they could get by with a life sentence. We wanted to let you hear what the families had to say in their own words after the verdict was read tonight.
We've lost loved ones. No, we didn't lose loved ones. Our loved ones were ripped from us, and they were slaughtered in that movie theater. But the jury chose another way, and we have to accept that. But today what was hard for me was accepting it for the others, those who are wounded and living with pain every single day.
But let's not skewer George Brockler and his team. They did what they're supposed to do and why you pay them. And if you screw that up, you really need to think of what you're doing.
I will never get to say I love you, AJ, and have him hug me again. I miss that. That's the last moment I had with him. There's one other person that we don't have here, and that is my mom, who died during this. This individual took lives off of my parents, off of my mom. She is now with AJ. What we have to remember is we could not have gotten through any of this without the kind words, the love and support of everybody.
And that's one thing that we've heard over and over again, that these 12 families, all strangers before that night in July 20th, 2012, how they've become a family because of the people they lost. They were there for each other during court. They would sit next to each other. They would cry together. They would laugh at times together, but they had to be there for one another. We also heard them, each family that went up to the podium today, to say they were so thankful to the district attorney's office, as well as everyone here in Arapahoe County and the people of Colorado that have been so supportive of them, no matter what they may have felt about the death penalty itself. They really felt like the community was there and had their backs. Jeremy?
Yeah, such a range of emotions out there. Sadness, anger, all of it for sure. Mark, thank you.
Our legal analyst Chris Decker reflecting on what this jury decision means and how we're learning that at least one person on the jury could not be swayed to sentence the gunman to death.
Big verdict today, rejecting the death penalty, even on these horrific facts. Today, we've heard from Juror 17 just moments ago, and she indicated that the mental health was the main component of this life verdict. She shared with us that the deliberations were respectful, that there were 9 in favor of death, 1 strongly in favor of life, and 2 who were wrestling with the issue. In the end, there was no pressure. The jurors respected one another's positions, and the default result was, as we now know, life without the possibility of parole. So a big verdict in a huge case.
Decker went on to tell us that District Attorney George Brockler handled the sentencing well, thanking the jury and respecting the legal system.
Governor Hickenlooper released this statement after the jury's decision was announced today. He says, "Our thoughts remain with the victims and families who've suffered unspeakable tragedy. No verdict can bring back what they've lost, but we hope to begin to find peace and healing in the coming weeks."
Well, coverage continues of the Aurora theater shooting trial and the decision to spare the shooter's life.
But there is other news to get to as well tonight, and coming up, a coyote attack in the city. What pet owners need to be aware of this time of year.
And a new lawsuit tonight in the death of Bobby Christina Brown, who is being blamed for giving her a toxic cocktail.
Also ahead of Problem Solvers update, we are happy to bring you how a mother whose scooter was stolen is benefiting from Colorado kindness.
Strong thunderstorms rumbled across the eastern plains earlier this evening. Coming up, we'll give you a radar update and let you know if thunderstorms will impact your weekend forecast. Stay with us.
Desperate situation. A mother in need after her wheelchair is stolen.
There's so much I have to do, and I can't do it.
Tonight, the community responds to our Problem Solvers' call for help and gets her the wheel she needs.
That mother is very grateful tonight. She was born with cerebral palsy, but still remains independent.
She's able to do so with the help of an electric scooter, but that scooter was stolen this week, leaving Holly Roberts with no mode of transportation. So the problem solver stepped in, and Fox 31 Denver's Kevin Torres live back here at the studio with an update to this story. Kevin?
Jeremy, sad to think that someone could do something like this. Fortunately, good outweighs the bad, and the scooter that was stolen cost about $3,800. But what Holly got in return is simply priceless. For a single mother with a disability, life can be rather difficult.
Yeah.
But somehow, Holly Roberts manages.
Happy now?
And she manages rather well.
Yeah.
That became difficult this week, though, when a thief stole her form of transportation.
There's so much I have to do, and I can't do it.
Her electric scooter.
It's her legs missing. She can do nothing.
Everything seemed bleak.
It's very...
Until some really good folks stepped in.
When I saw her on TV last night, and Sharita said, "Mom, let's do that." And I said, "Oh, okay, Sharita, let's go."
The Green family doesn't have a ton, but they do have really big hearts.
Because I've been there before, and it's really hard to get around when you don't have your wheelchair to your legs, obviously.
Sharita Green is disabled herself and knows the feeling.
When somebody does something like that, it's like you have no other choice,
So she, her mother, and her brother decided to donate an electric scooter.
I hope this helps, and God bless you. God bless you.
With the help of a few good maintenance men, we loaded it up, trekked it over from Montbello to Littleton. All right, here we go. Zigzagged around a few corners. And voila.
We got a little replacement for you.
The problem solvers help out another family.
Thank you. Thank you.
Makes a little bit of a better situation for you.
Thank you so much.
You're very
Oh my God.
Always love a good happy ending. There is a minor issue with that scooter. The battery seems to have fizzled, but the problem solvers spoke with the fine folks over at Batteries Plus Bulbs in Aurora, and they're going to take care of the problem free of charge and get Holly's new scooter up and running. We're live. I'm Kevin Torres, Fox 31 Denver.
Love those hugs at the end. They're always the best, right, Kevin? Thank you. Now, if you need the problem solvers' help, let us know. Email us at problemsolvers@kdvr.com. Call us 303-566-7575 or go to our website, kdvr.com. Just click on the Contact Us tab at the top of the homepage. 3 easy ways to get the help you need.
Now, pinpoint weather with meteorologist Laura Velasquez.
It was a little bit of a rough late afternoon, early evening for parts of the eastern plains, but we've started to see some improvement. Denver missed out on a lot of that thunderstorm action a little bit earlier today. Just a few scattered light showers impacted some places from DIA south toward around Centennial. Now, though, you can see that severe thunderstorm watch, which did include Weld, Adams, Arapahoe County, has been scaled back. So now out towards Sterling, Akron, Yuma, Holyoke, Julesburg until 11 o'clock. Parts of it, though, may be allowed to expire early, as I really think we've seen the larger severe weather threat end across the northeastern corner of the state. We are dry from Fort Collins south to Denver. Couple of scattered showers south of Fort Morgan. Still through parts of Washington, Lincoln County. We're looking at scattered thunderstorm activity, some brief heavy rainfall, as well as cloud to ground lightning can be expected with this. But the big time hail producing, strong severe wind gust producing thunderstorms have now pushed into Nebraska and Kansas. And I tell you what, those thunderstorms had a lot of heat and moisture to work with today. Look at the high temperature in Denver, 95 degrees, 91 in Greeley and in Akron, 88 degrees in Lyman, 60s, 70s for the high country, a comfortable 83 degrees in Grand Junction. So weekend storm chances continue. I think we'll see a few more of those tomorrow, lesser of a chance here on Sunday, and along with a little more cloud cover and an occasional shower or thunderstorm will come some slightly cooler temperatures, which many of you might welcome. 80s returning to the forecast. 95 gets a little bit on the warm side for some of us, but then 90s are back as we go into the middle of next week. So look at this big difference from those highs today. Denver down 25 to 70. Fort Morgan still holding in the 60s. Their temperature dropped rapidly as thunderstorms moved in about 4 o'clock this afternoon. 69 now in Keensburg, still 72 in Fort Collins. So we're 60 overnight. Few of those storms for the next couple hours to the south and east, but largely that severe weather threat has ended across the state. We dry things out overnight. There could be a little bit of patchy fog trying to develop as we approach daybreak tomorrow, especially in locations that did see the rain today. So we'll look for that. I don't expect it to be a big widespread issue. So here is the pinpoint weather futurecast. Starts for us at midnight. Notice all the activity pushed well off to the east. Still some cloud cover around though tomorrow morning. This is 8 o'clock. That'll keep the temperature climb a little bit on the slower side here tomorrow. A few scattered showers, perhaps a thunderstorm 1, 2, 3 o'clock. Any of those that do become stronger, that'll occur across the Great Plains and Kansas and Nebraska tomorrow. And by the time we get to 8 or 9 o'clock, we are looking at conditions drying out. So what about those temperatures? I mentioned a little cooler, generally mid 80s. It'll be in just the 70s for the higher elevations. 87 perhaps downtown in Denver. Same thing in Inglewood. And as you head out toward Aurora, topping out 86, 87 degrees. A few upper 70s for the higher elevations even possible. And here is that extended pinpoint weather forecast. Can't completely remove the chance for an afternoon shower or storm on Sunday, although the most likely spots for that would be in the higher elevations along with south near the Palmer Divide. By the time we get to Wednesday and Thursday, we're looking at conditions drying out and those 90s returning. And hey, even after the thunderstorms, nice little sunset there in Carr. Thank you to Katie for sending that into us.
Our clouds always make it so beautiful at sunset.
They really do.
Sets the perfect tone for the weekend, doesn't it?
That's right. Cruising on into Saturday.
Thanks, Laura.
Coming to the rescue of an owl.
Coming up next, the duo that helped cut the wild bird from a soccer net and why the Department of Wildlife is now praising them for the move.
Also, fruit flies and mouse droppings in our weekly restaurant report card, the restaurant that earned this week's F.
A family dog attacked by a coyote in a popular neighborhood in Westminster. We'll hear from the family coming up after the break.
A woman in Vail earning the title Owl Whisperer after she came to the aid of a great horned owl tangled up in a soccer net. Lisa Guida manages the Alpine Club, and it turns out she raised wild birds as a kid. A father and daughter out for a walk turned to her after coming across the trapped owl. She and her son Zach grabbed some scissors and heavy-duty ski gloves and got right to work. After about 30 minutes, the owl was finally free. State wildlife officials say Guida handled it like a pro.
The amount of care that people put into wildlife in Colorado is amazing, and we're really fortunate for that. People love our wildlife, and so they go out of their way and do amazing things like this.
Pretty cool. Well, sprinklers overnight soaked the owl, and unlike most birds, owls' wings are not waterproof, so this guy had to dry out before he was able to take off.
He's lucky they came along when they did.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. A family dog attacked by a coyote in a popular neighborhood in Westminster. The animal was caught on camera.
And residents are concerned about the safety of their pets and small children. New tonight, Fox 31 Denver's Drew Engelbart is live with the story. Drew?
Hey guys, we're here at 98th and Sheridan. Now there is a field behind me, Highland Hills Golf Course across the street, so there is some open space in this area. But just a couple of blocks from here, in a very popular neighborhood, residents were shocked to see a coyote attack.
You know, I thought we were safe and, surrounded, but obviously not.
Surveillance video of a driveway in Westminster shows a coyote.
There it is.
Sniffing around early yesterday morning.
I had never seen a coyote, and I never thought that one would be able to get into our yard.
But that's exactly what it did, jumping over a 6-foot fence.
I just heard these horrible cries from upstairs in the bedroom, and that's when I thought, that doesn't sound normal.
And attacking the family dog.
I saw my dog in the coyote's mouth, had it up off the ground by the neck, and I yelled her name, Daisy, and the coyote dropped her and just literally ran to that fence and just leaped right over.
Daisy has spent the last 2 days at the vet.
Big gashes in her neck.
She's going to be okay, and the family knows it could have been much worse.
And I just never thought that it would happen to them or, to us here. With the fences, all of our neighbors have the big fences too, and they were just as shocked.
This isn't the first time an incident like this has happened in Westminster, but the most concerning part of this one is the location, right in the middle of a neighborhood filled with small children.
If it can pick up a 25-pound dog, it can do a lot of damage to a little kid too.
Now, the family has said that they've already told a bunch of their neighbors about the attack, and they'll no longer let their 2 dogs out into the backyard without supervision. Live in Westminster, Drew Engelbart, Fox 31 Denver.
Quite a scare. All right, Drew, thank you.
Well, a sight you do not want to see while flying.
Coming up, where these flames were seen shooting out of the tails of an airplane. Look at that, and how the passengers on board are doing tonight.
Plus, we continue our coverage of the verdict in the Aurora Theater shooting trial, a live report from the Arapahoe County Justice Center, and the heartfelt thank you the judge gave to jurors.
Fox 31 Denver, news at 9:30.
We, the jury, do not have a unanimous final sentencing verdict on this count, and we, the jury, understand that as a result, the court will impose a sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole on this count.
The trial now officially over for the families of the 12 victims and 70 others hurt in the theater shooting back in 2012. Thanks for staying with us tonight. I'm Deborah Takahara.
And I'm Jeremy Hubbard. A 3-month-long trial coming to a close. The shooter will not be put to death, but instead will spend the rest of his life in prison. Fox 31 Denver's Julie Hayden has heard the testimony, seen the evidence, knows the case inside and out, been there pretty much every day from the very beginning, and now has this insider's perspective. Julie, I'm just curious, mostly about Juror 17. You spoke with her earlier this evening. You had some observations about her in court, and what she said, I guess, is not jiving with all of the victims' families, right?
Well, I can tell you this. The victims' families are very disappointed. The ones that I talked to, I think, had been expecting a death sentence as a result of the jury verdict, and I think they were not anticipating this. In the courtroom, you could hear when the judge read that, you just heard it there. There was this collective gasp, and then many of the family members just kind of bent over and cried. Ashley Mosier, who lost her daughter and her unborn baby and is a wheelchair herself, just kind of leaned forward and quietly sobbed. The family members, I think, were stunned and disappointed, as are the prosecutors, I think, although everybody agrees they gave it the best job. I noticed that Juror 17, to me, and another reporter sitting next to me, appeared to be looking at the defense table and sort of smiling at the defense people there, which, you know, it's hard to kind of read exactly what she meant by this, but most of the other jurors were not looking that way. They were looking away or just keeping their eyes really on the judge. And you could tell some of the juror members were upset. There was another one who was crying. Juror 17 told us that in the end, although she said later on that she wasn't one of the holdout jurors, she said that there were some jurors, one in particular and two kind of on the fence, who were somewhat swayed by the defense argument that James Holmes was mentally ill. And I think you got to keep in mind, in spite of all the testimony, the expert witnesses, the doctors, even though some of them said he was legally sane, they all agreed that they believed he was mentally ill.
And District Attorney George Brockler disappointed with the verdict, obviously, but he defended his position in seeking the death penalty in the first place.
Oh, sure. You know, the Colorado law and voters have repeatedly supported the death penalty here in Colorado. Colorado law says that under certain circumstances where you have certain aggravating factors, essentially it's prosecutors' job to seek the death penalty if they think they can get a conviction. I think the district attorney here has been criticized largely by defense attorneys, and really that's their job. But, you know, I think he would say, you know, hey, look, that was my job, and I think he said, I did my best. I still believe in what we did, but I respect the jurors' decision, and they did an admirable job.
Tough job. All right. Thanks, Julie.
Yeah. Well, the judge giving the jury a heartfelt thank you for their cooperation in the months-long and grueling trial, telling them they are an excellent example of how our legal system is supposed to work.
And without you, we couldn't have the system of justice that we have, and we could not have the democracy that we have. So kudos to all of you, and my thanks to all of you.
District Attorney George Brockler later added to Judge Carlos Zamora's comments, saying the jury took on one of the toughest tasks and did an amazing job, and thanked them for their commitment.
It has been a very difficult 3 years for the first responders who showed up to save lives at the theater that night. They've never been able to share their stories outside of court because of the gag order. I had a chance to speak one-on-one with Police Chief Nick Metz after the verdict was read today, and he said his officers are ready to move forward.
There is one bright spot in all of this, the work of the first responders.
But for the heroes that showed up there when they showed up and the things they did, we'd have put a lot more than 12 pictures up on that screen.
Aurora Police Chief Nick Metz wasn't here at the time, but the response from Aurora officers helped him make the decision to accept the job here.
I'm from Seattle, work for Seattle Police, and when this all went down, we were watching Aurora from up there and watching how they handled the situation and what they did. And to a person up there, everybody just kept saying, every officer in Seattle was saying, those guys and gals in Aurora are just kick ass. Excuse the language.
In court, officers testified about taking gunshot victims to hospitals in their patrol cars, holding people together physically and emotionally.
They're ready to move forward, and they're ready to heal, and they're ready to serve this city, in a great professional way that they have done. So they're ready to move forward.
And Fire Chief Mike Garcia said the heroism demonstrated that night will never be forgotten, and neither will the victims or their families.
Cannot imagine what they've gone through the last 3 years, and seeing what they've gone through today truly brought tears to my eyes.
50 different law enforcement agencies responded to the theater shooting. Both the fire department and police department are giving their first responders time to think about sharing their stories now that the gag order has been lifted. And they could do that sometime next week, although many say they just want to move on.
Within minutes of the verdict being read, people from all over the world went to their computers to voice their opinions. And while some agreed with the sentence, others didn't. But there was one thing in common. Aristea Brady joins us with that part of our team coverage and reaction from survivors, family, and perfect strangers. Aristea.
Yeah, Jeremy, hashtag Aurora. It's a phrase we've seen on Twitter now for 3 years and 18 days quite often. That hashtag saw two sides today, some who supported the shooter sentenced to life in prison and some who said justice was not done. Both sides, however, acknowledging nothing would be done to bring back those 12 lives. It was often said today, no matter what side of the fence you were on, today was not a celebration. Tweets and posts from all over the world. Perfect strangers weighing in to show their support and sympathy. 26-year-old Jessica Gowie was shot and killed on that fateful day. Today, her brother in support of the decision to sentence the shooter to life in prison. He said 3 years of anguish and $5 million for a verdict that the defense had already agreed to. Imagine what $5 million, the cost of the trial, could do for mental health in the great state of Colorado. Marcus Weaver, a shooting survivor, says while he disagrees with the jury's decision, he respects it. Just minutes after the verdict was announced, people took to the internet as if it were their journal to process the news. Tweets reading, "Thank you, jurors, for letting reason and not emotion guide you. If you really believe in justice and serving your sentence for evil crimes, life in prison is worse than death." And the death penalty isn't justice, even with scum like him. It's just revenge. And then there were those who felt compelled to say they believe that justice wasn't served. Shooter gets life in prison. He did not give his victims a choice of life. He killed 12 people, including a child. He planned it out, yet James Holmes' parents get to visit jail while 12 families visit graves. And while these 12 families will never get their loved ones back, you can't type in the word Aurora on social media without seeing Never Forget. Now, speaking of support, there are several foundations, funds, and charities that have all been born out of this tragedy. For a list of their websites, you can visit our site, KDVR.com. Aristea Brady, Fox 31 Denver.
Full range of emotions online today. Aristea, thank you.
A startling sight no airplane passenger ever wants to see.
That's for sure. Up next, the story behind the flames that engulfed part of this SkyWest jet this morning.
And new legal action in the death of Whitney Houston's daughter, Bobby Christina. What an amendment to a lawsuit alleges, right after this. Topping our news across America tonight, a lawsuit against Bobby Christina Brown's one-time companion, Nick Gordon, has been amended to include new allegations.
The suit originally alleged financial impropriety and physical harm. Now it claims his, quote, violent attack on Bobby Christina and associated reckless and toxic cocktail caused her to sustain a profound brain injury, which ultimately caused her death. The suit also claims the pair had an argument the night of January 31st after Gordon returned from an all-night cocaine and drinking binge. Bobby Christina died last month after spending months hospitalized in a coma.
California is reporting its first human plague case in 9 years after a child caught it while visiting a campground in Yosemite National Park. The child visited the park's Crane Flat campground in mid-July. Now park officials are trying to find the source. In the meantime, signs have been posted cautioning campers about the possibility of plague and advising them to keep their distance from rodents. One father at the campground says that's easier said than done.
Especially the little ones, they see a little thing like that and they think it's cute and they want to go up and touch it, but that's why we got to watch them.
Experts say the disease is not transmitted between humans except in rare cases.
All right, look at this. Flames started shooting from the engine of this Delta-operated SkyWest plane in Nashville this morning, right before it was about to take off for Cincinnati. An airport spokeswoman says the plane had just turned on its engine and had not yet reached the runway when the fire started. The fire did go out quickly once the engine was turned off. The plane was then brought back to the gate where passengers deboarded. I'm guessing nobody wanted back on that plane anytime soon. That is frightening.
That is. A major closure of I-225 to tell you about tonight.
Plus, serious river contamination. The steps deputies are taking to make sure no one gets sick on the Animas River.
It sounds like the health inspectors thought it was pretty dirty in here. There was rotten soups, there were flies, rodent droppings.
And we've been working on all that. We actually just took over the restaurant on Saturday.
Grading restaurants. It is time for Restaurant Report Card. Heidi Hemmett is after the break.
I'm Shaul Turner.
And I'm Kirk Yonke. Wake up with Good Day and get the news you need to get your day started right.
New rail line is being built here on 225.
Breaking news first to keep you informed.
You can count on Greg and Ken to bring you weather and traffic every 10 minutes.
On Monday at 7:45, we're helping you get ready for back to school, what every parent needs to know to get their kids prepared for class.
It is back to school time, and at 8:15, packing the perfect lunch. The simple tips from moms and dads to ensure your kids have the healthy essentials they need to get through the day.
So wake up with us Monday from 5 to 9 on Good Day Colorado.
Some 250 people showed up at a meeting today in Durango for an update on the contamination of the Animas River after the accidental release of 1 million gallons of mine wastewater.
And while some parts of the river are already clearing, the dirty water has yet to reach areas further south into New Mexico. The La Plata County Sheriff's Office has closed the river to all watercraft until further notice. Just look at that mess. Officials say water systems that may be impacted are taking the necessary precautions to ensure that drinking water is protected.
The stretch of I-225 shut down in both directions right now as crews install a pedestrian bridge that will connect the Florida rail station with the medical center of Aurora. This will reopen tomorrow morning at 6 if everything goes as planned. Then it'll be closed again from 8 o'clock tomorrow night until 10 Sunday morning. So you've got to find a way around that. Yeah.
It is Friday night, and that means it's Restaurant Report Card.
That's right. Hope you're hungry. Here's investigative reporter Heidi Hemmett with what's really going on behind those closed kitchen doors.
This restaurant is called Fork and Spoon, but health inspectors thought it needed a mop and bucket. The Denver restaurant fails our report card for 11 critical health code violations in its December of 2014 and June of 2015 inspections, including fruit flies, rotten soups, mouse droppings, an employee using a soiled apron to wipe his hands and face, and handling his cell phone while preparing food. There was dirt, debris, and grime covering the kitchen floor and black dust on the ceiling. Our repeated calls to the restaurant were not returned, so we stopped by.
It sounds like the health inspectors thought it was pretty dirty in here. There was rotten soups, there were flies, rodent droppings.
And we've been working on all that. We actually just took over the restaurant on Saturday.
Leslie Matrinko told us she is the new owner and is working hard to clean it up.
So we've inherited problems, but we are fixing them.
Fork and Spoon passed a follow-up inspection in July. Next, we visit Maloney's Tavern. Our second F this week. The Lodo Tavern was cited for 11 critical health code violations last December and June of this year. Among the violations, pink mold in the ice machine. The bartender was using a soiled towel to wipe his hands. There were 50 winged insects in the women's restroom hovering over a pile of soiled towels. 50 to 100 dead insects stuck to a sticky trap in the kitchen, and no soap or paper towels at the bar hand sink. Maloney's provided this statement. We value our relationship with the Denver County Health Department to help us maintain a model restaurant environment. We acted immediately and corrected all infractions noted on our last inspection. Maloney's passed a follow-up inspection in July. And finally, our A of the week goes to Jimmy John's in Arvada.
I'm stoked. That's really cool. I wasn't expecting that.
General Manager Katrina Fleury credits her staff and good customer service for their perfect scores.
To see all the violations listed in the reports, we have a link to the restaurant inspections on KDVR.com. Just click on the News tab, then click on Restaurant Report Card. And if you have a restaurant or any other story you would like us to investigate, send us an email to tips@KDVR.com. Heidi Hemmett, Fox 31 Denver.
Now, pinpoint weather. with meteorologist Laura Velasquez.
And things are quieting down here across the eastern plains of Colorado. While most of the I-25 corridor remained dry and storm-free this afternoon, there was some activity in the mountains and stronger storms that had developed over the eastern plains, shown there in pink. A severe thunderstorm watch right now posted through 11 o'clock this evening. It will likely be allowed to expire just a little bit earlier than that. The last of the shower and thunderstorm activity now trying to push just into Lyman, east of Akron. It will continue to move into Nebraska and Kansas. Had a couple areas of hail, one near Elizabeth with a storm earlier this afternoon. Another one covered much of Morgan County. Some hail reports between 1 and 3 inches in diameter. Thankfully, all of that is now gone for today. Still 70 in Grand Junction, 50 at Dillon, 70 here in Denver, even some low 80s showing up across the far eastern plains. Tonight, we drop to 60 in Denver and the Springs, a little warmer, La Junta, Lamar, and Springfield. Some 50s for the western slopes. Craig and Meeker dropping into the 40s. So here's the futurecast. Starts tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock. Now, we may have some patchy fog that develops from I-25 out to the east, especially in those locations that did see some rain today. Otherwise, we'll start partly cloudy and then become mostly cloudy as we see a little more moisture working its way in through the upper levels from the south and west. So scattered showers, a few storms develop in the higher elevations. Remember to summit, get back down below tree line for those of you hiking the 14ers tomorrow by about 11 o'clock or so. We could see a couple of these scattered showers, even a storm here in Denver, although I don't think they'll be as widespread as they were today and likely not as strong. Those will taper off here tomorrow evening. 87 the high in Denver, almost 10 degrees cooler than today's 95. The extended forecast shows 80 sticking around through the weekend into the beginning part of the week. But if you like 90s, they're not so far away. They return to the forecast here with dry conditions on Wednesday.
All right. Thanks, Laura.
I like the 90s, the decade. The temperatures, not so much. Well, questions at the offensive line and a concussion for one player on the defensive line. We'll have the latest from Broncos training camp coming up.
Plus, an exciting finish between the Rockies and the Nationals. How many times do we say that? Exciting. Rockies.
Yeah,
Raul
right.
Martinez is going to show you next in sports.
Now, the Fox 31 Denver Sports Zone with Raul Martinez.
This ball crushed deep right field, way back. Take a good look. You won't see it for long. Cargo has given the Rockies the lead.
Yeah, fun game tonight in our nation's capital. Carlos Gonzalez hits a grand slam to put Colorado up 5-4 in the 8th, and bottom 9 Nationals have Bryce Harper up, but Tommy Kangley on his 26th birthday seals the deal. That's the Rockies' 46th win of the season. They went 5-4. All right, switching to the Broncos, and it was a packed house at practice day. A record training camp attendance of 5,507 people. Fans are pumped. We're just a week away from the first preseason game. Now, the offensive line is still a concern. There are a number of young guys who are starting. But Fox 31 Denver's Cami Carmen talked to one veteran today who worked his way from the bottom to the top.
The Broncos offensive line is still one of the biggest question marks for this team, but within the first few days of camp, Ryan Harris moved in at right tackle, and he is staying put. An 8th-year veteran, Harris is familiar with Denver. He spent his first 4 years in the league with the Broncos before making stops in Houston and Kansas City. But when Ryan Clady went down, Harris is the guy the Broncos wanted.
Tackles are hard to find, and fortunately, me, Rico, Clancy, we all had relationships with Ryan, and boy, it looks bigger each and every day. So just proud of him. He's come back, he's hungry, and I know he's got some good time left in him. He's taking advantage of it.
And there's always pressure, you know. This is the NFL, so I mean, there's always pressure, especially now in training camp. I mean, you know, we really are close to starting the season. My expectations are always higher than I think people place on me, so that keeps the pressure down for me and allows me to go out, focus on what I want to accomplish, and if I can accomplish those goals, I think I'm pretty good at the end of the day.
Harris doesn't just play football. The Notre Dame grad actually spent some time working with CU Athletics. He interned in the compliance department. Said it was very interesting to see a different side of sports, but right now he is all Broncos all the time. At the UCL Training Center, Cami Carmen, Fox 31 Denver.
Thanks, Cami. Quick injury update for you. It was revealed today the Broncos defensive end Derek Wolfe suffered a concussion. It happened yesterday. He must now go through NFL protocol. Also, wide receiver Emmanuel Sanders sat out again with a hamstring injury, but head coach Gary Kubiak called it minor and says he should be back quickly. All right, college football practices are underway today. Colorado State got things going in Fort Collins. This is now Mike Bobo's team. He's still trying to figure out who will start at quarterback. Right now, sophomore Nick Stevens is running with the first team. For Bobo, he's showing the team who he is.
If you try to be somebody you're not, really kids are going to be able to see right through it. So I'm going to be who I am, be demanding. I believe we got to push these guys. I believe we got to take them to some places they've never been if we truly want to get where we want to go.
Big day for Valor Christian High School. George Gwozdecki named head coach of the hockey team there. You may remember him as the longtime legendary coach at DU. He was recently assistant with the Tampa Bay Lightning when they went to the Stanley Cup. He's also had NCAA titles as a player, assistant coach, and when he was the head coach with the Pioneers, Valor Christian scored big time. They should be very, very good nationally for a long time.
Stepping up their hockey game.
Hey, what can I say? Football and hockey now.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. And thanks for watching. Still plenty more news to come tonight.
Fox 31 Denver News at 10 starts right now.